There are moments that divide our lives into before and after. For me, that moment came on October 15th, 2024, the night I died for 9 minutes. My name is Cassandra Whitmore, and I'm a registered nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Cleveland. What I experienced during those 9 minutes changed everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the profound connection between all souls. But to understand the magnitude of what happened that night, you need to understand the path that led me there. I've always been drawn to healing. Even as a child, I was the one patching up scraped knees and offering comfort to injured animals. My grandfather, a Methodist minister with kind eyes and unwavering faith, used to tell me I had healing hands blessed by God. When he passed away during my teenage years, his belief in me became a guiding light, leading me toward nursing school and eventually to the emergency department at St. Mary's. For 8 years, I worked the night shift in the ER, witnessing humanity at its most vulnerable. Every night brought new stories: car accidents, heart attacks, overdoses, domestic violence cases. Each patient carried their own universe of pain, fear, and hope. Through it all, I learned that healing isn't just about mending bodies, it's about touching souls. Sometimes, that meant simply holding someone's hand as they received devastating news, or singing softly to a frightened child during a painful procedure. But while I was helping others heal, my own life was quietly unraveling. My husband Marcus, once a loving partner and devoted father, had been slowly disappearing into a bottle. It started subtly: a few extra drinks after work, angry outbursts followed by tearful apologies, promises to change that evaporated like morning dew. I told myself it was just stress from his job, that things would get better, that every marriage had rough patches. Looking back, I realize I was doing what many of us do when faced with a deteriorating situation. I was choosing blindness over confrontation. Our children, Emma and Tyler, became experts at reading the atmosphere in our home. Emma, 12 going on 30, developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when her father's mood was darkening. She would usher 9-year-old Tyler upstairs, distracting him with homework or games, anything to shield him from the storm brewing below. The guilt I felt watching them navigate this emotional minefield was crushing, but it was overshadowed by a paralyzing fear of making things worse by taking action. My own health issues complicated everything. I've had chronic asthma since childhood, and stress always exacerbated it. There were nights when the weight of our situation would literally take my breath away, leaving me clutching my inhaler in the bathroom, trying to muffle the sound of my wheezing so I wouldn't wake the kids. The irony wasn't lost on me. A nurse who helped others heal, but couldn't heal her own home. Work became my sanctuary. In the ER, everything made sense. There were protocols to follow, problems with clear solutions, and most importantly, I felt competent and in control. My colleagues became a second family, though I never shared the full extent of my troubles at home. We all carry our secrets, and in healthcare, we become adept at wearing masks of composure while dealing with our own storms. The night that changed everything started like any other. I had just finished my usual pre-shift routine, checking equipment, reviewing patient charts, and saying a quick prayer for guidance. The ER was relatively quiet, which experienced nurses know is often the calm before the storm. I had just administered medication to Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly patient with pneumonia, when my phone buzzed with a call from Emma. The moment I heard her voice, I knew something was terribly wrong. Emma had always been my strong one, the child who tried to protect me, even though that should have been my job. But now her voice was shaking, thick with tears and raw fear. "Mom, please come home. Dad's really angry. He's scaring us." In the background, I could hear Tyler crying, his usual boisterous energy replaced by terrified whimpers. My heart started racing, and I could feel my airways beginning to constrict. the familiar warning sign of an impending asthma attack. But there wasn't time for that. My children needed me. I quickly explained the situation to my supervisor, Sarah, who took one look at my face and said, "Go. We've got this covered." I grabbed my purse, making sure my inhaler was inside, and rushed to my car. The 15-minute drive home was eternal. Every red light felt like an hour, every slow driver an obstacle between me and my children. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as scenarios played through my mind, each worse than the last. The rational part of my brain, the nurse who dealt with crisis situations daily, tried to maintain control. But the mother in me was screaming. I tried calling Marcus's cell phone twice during the drive, but it went straight to voicemail. This wasn't unusual lately. He'd developed a habit of turning his phone off during his drinking episodes, as if disconnecting from the world could somehow disconnect him from his demons. The autumn air was crisp and cool as I pulled into our driveway, but I barely noticed it. All I could focus on was the light coming from our living room window and the shadows moving inside. Standing at my own front door, I felt like I was about to enter another world entirely. In a way, I was. What waited on the other side of that door would set in motion events that would take me far beyond our physical realm, to a place where the boundaries between life and death, love and fear, earthly and divine would blur and transform. But in that moment, all I knew was that my children were afraid and needed their mother. My hand reached for the doorknob, and I offered up a silent prayer, not for myself, but for the strength to handle whatever waited on the other side. I had no way of knowing that this prayer would be answered in ways I could never have imagined, or that I was about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the incredible power of divine love. Looking back now, I can see how every moment of my life had been preparing me for what was about to happen. Every patient I'd helped, every crisis I'd managed, every breath I'd struggled for through my asthma, all of it was training for the extraordinary experience that awaited me. But more importantly, it was preparing me for what would come after, for the mission I would be given and the light I would be asked to share. The porch light cast long shadows across our front yard as I turned the key in the lock. The familiar sound of the deadbolt sliding back seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet night. As I pushed the door open, the hinges creaked. A sound I'd never noticed before, but would never forget after that night. The air inside was heavy with tension and the sour smell of alcohol, a combination that made my chest tighten even more. What happened next would send me on a journey beyond the veil of mortality, into a realm of pure love and divine purpose. But first, I had to cross the threshold of my own home, not knowing that I was about to experience both the darkest and most illuminating moments of my existence. Sometimes, I've learned, we have to pass through the deepest shadows to find the brightest light. The scene that greeted me as I stepped inside would be forever etched in my memory. My children huddled in the corner of our living room, their faces streaked with tears, and Marcus pacing like a caged animal, radiating anger and despair. In that moment, I was just a mother trying to protect her children, a wife facing the breakdown of her marriage, a nurse about to become a patient. I had no idea I was also about to become a witness to something far beyond our earthly understanding. But that's how transformation often works, isn't it? It comes not when we're ready, but when we're needed. And on that October night, as I stepped into my living room, I was about to be needed in ways I could never have imagined. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you die. But what I experienced in those 9 minutes was not a simple replay of memories. It was an awakening to a reality more vivid and profound than anything I had ever known in my earthly existence. The moment Marcus's hands closed around my throat, time seemed to splinter. I was acutely aware of everything: the rough texture of the wall against my back, the terror in Emma's screams, Tyler's broken sobs, the burning in my lungs as they fought for air. My asthma, which had been my constant companion since childhood, transformed the struggle for breath into an inferno within my chest. I tried to speak, to reason with the stranger wearing my husband's face, but no words could escape. The edges of my vision began to darken, like a photograph slowly being consumed by flames. In those final moments of consciousness, my last thought wasn't of fear or anger. It was a prayer for my children. Please, God, protect them. Then everything went black. The transition from life to death wasn't instant. It was more like slowly waking from a dream, except I was waking into something far more real than what I'd left behind. The first thing I noticed was the absence of pain. The burning in my lungs, the constriction in my throat, the weight of my chronic asthma, all of it was gone. I felt lighter than air, as if gravity had lost its hold on me. That's when I experienced what I would later learn many call an out-of-body experience. I could see myself lying on our living room floor, my face a haunting shade of blue. The scene below me was chaos. Emma was on the phone with 911, her voice steadier than any 12-year-old's should ever need to be. Tyler had collapsed beside my body, his small hands clutching my arm, begging me to wake up. Marcus had backed away to the far wall, horror replacing rage as the fog of alcohol lifted enough for him to comprehend what he'd done. But here's what was strange. I felt no attachment to the scene unfolding below. Instead, I was filled with an overwhelming sense of peace. It wasn't the passive peace of acceptance or resignation. It was an active, living peace that seemed to pulse with its own energy. Every fear, every worry, every earthly concern dissolved in its presence. Then I noticed the light. It began as a pinpoint in the distance, like a star breaking through storm clouds. But this light was different from anything I'd ever seen. It wasn't harsh or glaring. It was alive, inviting, almost musical in its beauty. As I moved toward it, or perhaps it moved toward me, the light grew brighter and warmer, filling my field of vision until it was all I could see. Within this light, colors I had never seen before danced and swirled. How do you describe colors that don't exist on Earth? The closest I can come is to say they were like emotions made visible. Joy, love, peace, wonder, all manifesting as pure chromatic energy. The light wasn't just something I saw. It was something I felt, something I became part of. That's when I saw him. Jesus stood before me, his presence more magnificent than any artistic representation could ever capture. He wasn't the soft, passive figure often depicted in church paintings. He was power and love personified, wisdom and compassion made manifest. His eyes held the depth of eternity, yet when he looked at me, I felt completely known and understood on the most intimate level. "Welcome, Cassandra," he said, his voice resonating through every particle of my being. The sound wasn't just heard, it was experienced, like a symphony that plays in your soul rather than your ears. In his presence, I felt completely exposed, yet totally accepted. Every flaw, every mistake, every doubt I'd ever had was laid bare, yet instead of judgment, I felt only love. I fell to my knees, overcome by the magnitude of his presence. All my life, I'd been a Christian, attended church, said my prayers, but nothing had prepared me for this reality. The love emanating from him was beyond anything our earthly understanding of love could encompass. It was pure, absolute, and unconditional in a way that defied human description. "There is much you need to see," he said, extending his hand to me. When I took it, the scene around us transformed. We began what I can only describe as a journey through the fabric of existence itself. The best way I can explain it is to imagine being able to step outside of time and see it all at once. Past, present, and future existing simultaneously. He showed me moments from my life, but not in the way I had experienced them. Instead, I saw the ripple effects of every action, every choice, every moment of kindness or fear. I saw the night I stayed late at the hospital with Mr. Johnson, an elderly patient with no family. What had seemed like a simple act of compassion had set off a chain of events that touched countless lives. Because I stayed with him, he didn't die alone, and his peaceful passing inspired his estranged daughter to reconcile with her own children, healing a family rift that had lasted decades. I saw the time I'd comforted Sarah, a young mother who had just lost her baby. The memory of that night had haunted me. I'd felt so helpless, so inadequate in the face of her grief. But now, I saw how that shared moment of sorrow had created a bond that would later give Sarah the strength to counsel other grieving mothers, creating a network of healing that spread like ripples in a pond. But Jesus didn't just show me the positive moments. With infinite gentleness, he revealed the times I'd let fear hold me back from helping others, the times I'd judged without understanding, the times I'd chosen silence when I should have spoken up. Yet even these moments were shown without condemnation. They were simply lessons, opportunities for growth. Then he showed me something that took my breath away, the actual fabric of creation itself. Imagine seeing the universe not as empty space dotted with stars, but as an intricate web of light connecting everything and everyone. Every soul was connected to every other soul through strands of divine energy, pulsing with love and purpose. Every action, every thought, every moment of love or fear sent ripples through this cosmic web, affecting not just the present, but echoing into the future. This is the truth of creation, he explained, his voice filling me with understanding. You are all connected. Every act of love strengthens these connections. Every act of fear weakens them. Do you see now why every moment matters? Why every choice is sacred? He then showed me my own place in this divine tapestry. I saw the countless lives I had touched and would touch if I chose to return. The light flowing through these connections wasn't just abstract energy. It was love in its purest form, the same love that was radiating from him. The scene shifted again, and I found myself in what I can only describe as the control room of the universe. But instead of machines or computers, there were pure energy patterns, flowing and shifting like a cosmic dance. I saw how prayers manifested as pulses of light, how thoughts created ripples in the fabric of reality, how love literally held the universe together. Your understanding of time is limited, he explained. Here, all moments exist simultaneously. What you see as separate events are all part of one grand symphony of creation. Every soul plays its part in this divine composition. He showed me how my own life fitted into this grand design. I saw how my struggles with asthma had given me empathy for others who suffered, how my experiences with Marcus had prepared me to help other women in similar situations, how even my moments of doubt and fear were part of a larger pattern of growth and understanding. Then, he showed me something that brought tears to my eyes. My grandfather, standing in a garden more beautiful than anything Earth could produce. He looked exactly as I remembered him, but now he was surrounded by pure light, his smile radiating a joy that transcended earthly happiness. The love you share never dies, Jesus said. It becomes part of the eternal fabric of creation. But the most profound revelation came when he showed me my own soul. It was beautiful beyond description, shining with divine light, though I could see where fear and pain had created shadows, where trauma had left its marks. Yet even these darker areas were not ugly. They were simply places waiting to be filled with light. "This is how I see you," he said, his voice filled with infinite tenderness. "This is how I see all my children. The darkness you perceive in yourself is temporary. The light within you is eternal." In that moment, I understood something fundamental about existence. We are not physical beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a physical experience. Our true nature is light, love, and connection. Everything else, our fears, our doubts, our earthly struggles, is temporary. Time seemed to have no meaning in this realm, yet I sensed a moment of decision approaching. I felt myself being drawn back toward my earthly existence, like a tide pulling at my consciousness. But before the scene faded, Jesus shared one final truth that would forever change my understanding of life and death. "Remember," he said, "the kingdom of heaven is not a place. It is a state of being. It exists wherever love exists, wherever light pushes back darkness, wherever souls connect in genuine compassion and understanding. You don't have to wait for death to experience it. Every act of love creates a piece of heaven on earth." The light began to fade, but his final words echoed through my being. "I am with you always, even to the end of the age." What happened next was like being pulled through a tunnel of light, moving at impossible speed, yet feeling completely at peace. I could hear distant voices growing louder, the paramedics working over my body, my children's frightened cries, the chaos of emergency response. Then, with a jolt that felt like being struck by lightning, I was back in my body. The pain returned, my throat burning, my lungs screaming for air. I heard someone shout, "She's back!" "We've got a pulse." But I brought something back with me from those 9 minutes in eternity. A truth so profound, it would change not just my life, but the lives of countless others through me. I had experienced something beyond death, beyond fear, beyond our limited earthly understanding. I had touched the divine and been touched by it in return. As I gasped my first breath back in my earthly body, I knew with absolute certainty that this was not the end of my journey. It was just the beginning. The real miracle wasn't that I had died and come back. The real miracle was what I had learned about life itself and the purpose I had been given to share that knowledge with others. Before I was drawn back to my earthly body, Jesus and I shared a profound conversation that would reshape my understanding of life, purpose, and divine love. Standing in that realm of pure light, where time had no meaning and love was the very fabric of existence, he revealed truths that would become the foundation of my new life. "Cassandra," he began, his voice resonating with infinite compassion. "You've been carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. You've believed that love means sacrificing yourself, that strength means silence, that faith means accepting suffering. But these are not my truths." He gestured, and suddenly we were walking through what appeared to be a garden, but unlike any garden on earth. The flowers here sang with color, each petal emanating its own light. The very air seemed alive with possibility. As we walked, he began to unfold deeper truths about my life and purpose. "Your work as a nurse," he said, "has been more than a profession. It has been preparation. Every patient you've tended, every hand you've held, every tear you've wiped away, these were moments of divine connection. But you've been operating at only a fraction of your potential because fear has been your constant companion." He showed me scenes from my life at the hospital, moments I'd forgotten or hadn't realized were significant. I saw myself humming softly to a frightened child during a painful procedure, the melody carrying healing beyond the physical. I saw my hand on the shoulder of a grieving parent, and for the first time, I could see the actual transfer of divine comfort through that simple touch. "Your hands are conduits of healing," he explained, "but not just for physical ailments. You have the capacity to help heal souls, to help others reconnect with their divine nature. But first, you must fully embrace your own." Then he turned to the subject of my marriage, but not in the way I expected. "Tell me about Marcus," he said, though I knew he already understood everything. "I failed him," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I couldn't help him, couldn't save him from his demons. His response changed everything I thought I knew about love and responsibility. Beloved, you were never meant to save him. That was not your purpose. Your purpose was to love yourself, your children, others, as I have loved you. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means walking away so others can face their own choices. He showed me Marcus's soul then, damaged, but not beyond redemption, struggling with generational trauma and his own deep wounds. His journey is his own, Jesus said gently. Your journey now is to break these cycles of fear and violence, to show your children a different way. Then he revealed something that brought me to my knees. He showed me my children's futures, 2 possible paths. In one, I returned to the old patterns, and I watched the trauma pass down to another generation. In the other, I saw them flourishing, becoming beacons of light themselves, because they had witnessed their mother's courage and transformation. Your children, he said, are watching and learning, not just about survival, but about love, strength, and faith. What will you teach them? The question hung in the air like a challenge and a promise. Then he showed me something extraordinary, a series of future moments that could come to pass if I chose to return and embrace my full purpose. I saw myself speaking to groups of women, sharing my story, helping them find their own strength and divine connection. I saw a support group in a church basement, where my experience became a bridge for others to cross from darkness into light. I saw my nursing taking on a new dimension, as I learned to tend to spiritual wounds alongside physical ones. But how? I asked. How can I do all this? I trailed off, realizing how I'd been about to diminish myself. He smiled, and the love in that smile could have powered the universe. You are never just anything. You are my beloved child, created for purpose and filled with my light. The question is not how. The question is, will you trust me enough to say yes? Then he showed me something that left me breathless, the ripple effects of saying yes. I saw how my story would touch others, who would touch others in turn, creating a web of healing and hope that extended far beyond my own lifetime. I saw my children growing up to become compassionate, strong adults who understood the true meaning of love and faith. I saw Marcus finding his own path to healing, though separate from mine. But what about my asthma? I asked, thinking of how it had always limited me. What about my fears? Your physical challenges are part of your testimony, he replied. They are not obstacles to your purpose. They are part of it. As for your fears, he paused, and I felt his love wrap around me like a warm embrace. Perfect love casts out fear. You have experienced this perfect love now. Carry it with you. Let it be your strength. He then revealed something about the nature of divine love that transformed my understanding completely. Love, he said, is not just an emotion or a choice. It is the fundamental force of creation. It is what holds the universe together. When you choose love over fear, you align yourself with the very power that formed the stars. As our conversation drew to a close, he gave me specific instructions for my return. Remember, he said, you are not going back to be perfect. You are going back to be authentic, to be a bearer of light, to show others what real love looks like in action. Then he showed me one final vision, myself as I truly was, a being of light temporarily housed in a physical form. The light within me was not dim or damaged as I had feared, but bright and beautiful, ready to shine if I would only let it. The choice is yours, he said. Will you return? Will you embrace your full purpose? Looking at all he had shown me, the lives waiting to be touched, the healing waiting to be shared, the love waiting to be expressed, I knew my answer. Yes, I whispered. I'll go back. His final words to me were both a blessing and a commission. Remember, you carry my light within you. Let it shine. Don't hide it behind walls of fear anymore. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. The return to my body was just the beginning of my transformation. The months since that October night have been a journey of profound change and healing. The first steps were the hardest: filing for divorce, moving with my children to a safe place, reaching out for help. But each step has been guided by the truths I learned during those 9 minutes in eternity. I connected with a domestic violence support group through my church, where I found both help and purpose. The women there became my sisters in healing, and eventually, I began sharing my story with them. What amazed me was how many of them had their own experiences of divine intervention, moments of grace they'd been afraid to speak about. My work as a nurse has transformed as well. While I still tend to physical needs, I've learned to recognize and respond to the deeper wounds that often lie beneath the surface. The hospital administration has even asked me to help develop a program that addresses the spiritual and emotional needs of patients alongside their medical care. My children are healing too. Emma has started writing poetry about hope and transformation. Tyler, who used to be afraid of his own shadow, has joined a youth group and is learning to use his voice for good. They both still have moments of struggle, but they're learning that strength doesn't mean absence of fear. It means choosing love even when you're afraid. Marcus is on his own journey now. He's in a rehabilitation program, facing his demons with professional help. We maintain careful boundaries, but I've learned to pray for his healing without feeling responsible for it. Sometimes love means letting go and trusting God with those we cannot help ourselves. My asthma hasn't magically disappeared, but its hold over me has changed. Where once it was a source of constant fear, it's become a reminder of how precious each breath is, how every moment is a gift to be used wisely. The physical limitations it imposes have taught me to pace myself, to listen to my body, and to find strength in vulnerability. I've started a weekly gathering in my home, not quite a Bible study, not quite a support group, but a place where people can come to share their stories of darkness and light. We call it Light Bearers, and it's become a sanctuary for others who are learning to let their own light shine. The truth that continues to amaze me is how ordinary and extraordinary this new life is at the same time. I still do laundry and pay bills. I still have moments of doubt and fear. But underlying everything is an unshakable awareness of divine love and purpose. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to share light, every challenge an invitation to choose love over fear. To those reading this who feel trapped in darkness, whether it's an abusive relationship, addiction, chronic illness, or any other form of bondage, please know that you are seen, you are loved, and you have a purpose. Your light matters. Your story matters. Your life matters. What I learned in those 9 minutes beyond the veil wasn't just about the afterlife. It was about how to truly live, how to love without fear, how to shine without shame, how to trust in a purpose bigger than our pain. The kingdom of heaven isn't just a future destination. It's a present reality we can help create every time we choose love over fear, light over darkness, connection over isolation. Every day, I work on letting my walls down, brick by brick. Every day I practice saying yes to love and no to fear. Every day I remember his words. You carry my light within you. Let it shine. Because that's the real miracle, not that I died and came back, but that each of us carries within us a spark of divine light. We don't have to wait for a near-death experience to let that light shine. We can choose to let it shine right now, in this moment, in whatever circumstances we find ourselves. That's my testimony, my message, my purpose, to help others recognize and release their own light. Because when we all shine together, the darkness doesn't stand a chance.